A man lay on the cold stone floor of a cave. He had not seen the sun in 5 years. His clothes were torn and ragged. His hair had grown long and tangled. His body was thin, almost skin and bone. He had forgotten the taste of fresh air and the warmth of sunlight. Each day he woke to darkness. He could not tell morning from night. The only sound he heard was the drip of water echoing through the tunnels. Sometimes he heard bats flutter overhead or water trickling from the cave roof. Hunger was his constant companion. He knew the ache in his stomach better than he knew his own name. In the early days he tried to escape. He searched for an exit. He crawled through narrow passages and climbed steep rocks. But every path he took led deeper into the cave. He lost hope of finding his way out. Slowly, he learned to survive in the darkness. He drank from pools of water that collected in natural basins. He caught small insects and worms that lived in cracks of the cave walls. Sometimes he found roots that grew down into the cave from above. He ate them raw, washing them in water. The taste was bitter, but it kept him alive over time. His mind began to change. He talked to himself to fill the silence. He imagined the voices of long-lost friends and family. He remembered fragments of his old life. He recalled the sound of birds singing in trees, remembered the feel of grass under his bare feet. He remembered laughter and music. These memories visited him like ghosts. He kept a small fire alive. With dried twigs he found near the cave entrance. The smoke stung his eyes, but the fire gave him warmth and light. He cooked insects on hot stones and roasted small roots. He watched the flames dance against the rough walls. He felt safe near the fire. For years he lived like this. His clothes turned gray from dust. His skin grew pale from lack of sun. His eyes lost their bright color and became cloudy. He no longer recognized himself in reflections on damp rock. Surfaces, he felt like a stranger in his own body. Then one day he heard a new sound. It was soft, like a whisper. He froze and listened. The sound came again. It was a gentle voice calling his name. He thought it might be his own imagination. He rubbed his eyes and sat up. He strained to hear more. The voice came again, clear and steady. "Are you there?" it asked. The man's heart pounded. He had not heard another human voice in 5 long years. He rose slowly and moved toward the sound. His legs shook, but he forced himself to walk. He reached a narrow tunnel that led to a small chamber. At the edge of the firelight, he saw her silhouette. She stood at the cave mouth, holding a small bundle wrapped in cloth. She wore simple clothes and carried a lantern that burned with a soft glow. She looked calm and kind. The man's throat felt tight. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The woman took a cautious step forward. Her lantern cast a warm circle of light. The man blinked and stared at the bundle in her hands. "I brought you food," she said softly. She knelt on the damp ground and unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a loaf of bread and a leather pouch filled with water. The bread was golden brown, with a crust that cracked when she broke it. The water glistened in the lantern light. He stared at the food as if he had never seen it before. His stomach growled loudly in his chest. He crouched and reached for a piece of bread. The woman nodded and moved back a few steps. She watched him with gentle eyes. The man bit into the bread. It was warm and soft. Filled his mouth, he swallowed and reached for the water. A cool liquid soothed his dry throat. Tears pricked his eyes. He ate quickly, hungry for every crumb. When the bread was gone, he licked his fingers, savoring the taste. For the first time in years, he felt full. His body relaxed. He lay back on the cold ground and closed his eyes. He felt safe. The woman sat beside him in silence. She waited until he finished the water. Then she spoke. "My name is Mara," she said. "I have been watching you for some time. You must be hungry and tired." She offered him more water from her pouch. He tried to speak, but only croaked. Mara smiled and held his gaze. "Take your time," she said. "There is no rush." He took a deep breath and managed to say, "Thank you." His voice was weak, but real. Mara nodded. She reached into a small pack at her side and pulled out a thin blanket. She laid it over him gently. "You look cold," she said. Her voice had a soft warmth. "Rest here tonight. I will return in the morning with more food." The man watched her. A flood of questions burst in his mind. Who was she? Why did she help him? What was happening outside? He wanted to ask, but his body felt too weak. He closed his eyes again, letting the exhaustion take him. Mara stood and lit a small torch near the fire. The cave walls glowed with amber light. Her lantern and the torch made the darkness dance. The man drifted into a deep sleep, his first real rest in years. As he slept, he dreamed of open skies and green fields. He dreamed of birds and laughter. He dreamed of a world beyond the cave. When dawn came, he would wake to a new life. Outside, the stars faded into pale light. Mara looked down at the sleeping man. She thought of the risks she took by entering the cave. She knew the world above was dangerous, but she believed in hope. She believed that every life mattered. With care, she backed away from the fire and stepped into the shadows of the tunnel. She left her torch burning, a beacon in the dark. She walked toward home, ready to bring help to the man who had survived 5 years in a world without light. Mara returned to the cave just as dawn light filtered into the entrance. She carried a wicker basket filled with simple food: fresh fruit, hard cheese, dried meat, and a small loaf of bread. She also had another water skin. She moved quietly so as not to startle the man, as the torch she left burning from the night before still glowed softly against the cave wall. The man stirred and opened his eyes. At first, he did not recognize the shapes around him. Then he saw Mara's gentle face and the basket at her feet. He sat up slowly, wincing as his muscles protested. Every movement felt stiff and strange. He rubbed his arms as if to wake his limbs. "Good morning," Mara said softly. "I brought more food." She set the basket near the fire and arranged the contents on a flat stone. She poured water into a shallow bowl and placed it beside the food. The man watched her with quiet wonder. After 5 years alone, he did not know how to speak more than a few words. His voice had grown thin like his body. Still, he forced himself to try. "Thank you," he said. His voice cracked. Mara smiled and offered him a piece of fruit. It was an apple, pale green with rosy blush. He took it carefully, feeling its weight. He bit into it and tasted crisp sweetness. Juice ran down his chin and he licked it away. The simple flavor filled his senses. He felt alive again. As he ate, Mara sat across from him. She watched him closely, but did not speak. The silence was peaceful. The cave seemed less dark with her presence. The drip of water echoed faintly, and the fire crackled. When he finished the apple, he reached for cheese. Mara handed him a thin slice. He placed it on a hot stone near the fire. The cheese softened and grew fragrant. He ate slowly, savoring each bite. After a while, Mara spoke. "You've been here long," she said. "I want to help you leave." The man paused, cheese halfway to his mouth. He looked up at her. He had not thought of leaving. The cave had been his home and prison. He felt safe here, but also trapped. Mara continued. "I know a way out. I've explored the tunnels before. The cave connects to a river that flows above ground." She pointed toward a narrow passage. "We can follow the stream for a short time, then climb to daylight." The man frowned. He remembered his own attempts to leave long ago. Each path he tried ended in dead ends or collapsed tunnels. But Mara's news gave him hope. He set down the dried meat and wiped his mouth. "Will it hurt?" he asked. Mara shook her head. "It will be hard. You are weak now, but I will help you." She stood and stretched. Her movements were lithe. And sure, she gathered up the basket. "You should rest here for the day. Tomorrow we begin the journey." The man nodded. He felt both excitement and fear. He lay back on the blanket Mara provided and closed his eyes. Images of sunlight danced. In his mind, he imagined breathing fresh air, imagined stars above him. He fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Mara watched him sleep. She thought of the promise she made to herself, to bring him back to life again. She closed her eyes and listened to the drip of water. Then she gathered her own supplies and slipped out of the cave into the soft morning light. The rest of the day passed quietly. Mara built a larger fire and cooked more food for both of them. She talked to the man as he rested. She told him stories of the world above, of rolling hills, of wind-swept deserts, of cities filled with lights. She spoke of friendly faces and music that soared through open plazas. The man listened, eyes closed, absorbing every word. He tried to remember his own past. Flashes of memory came, a ship's deck, voices calling orders, a flash of blinding. Light, then darkness. He could not place a name or face. His mind felt like a book with burned pages. He clutched at the memories as if they were fragile things he might lose again. Mara saw his struggle. She sat at his side and took his hand. Her touch was warm. "You will find your past," she said. "But first, you must live today." She squeezed his hand gently. "You have survived long alone. Now, I will help you live again." The man opened his eyes. The cave seemed less cold. The firelight reflected in his eyes, giving them a faint glow. He met Mara's gaze. He nodded. "Thank you," he whispered. His voice was steadier now. As the sun moved across the sky, its light reached deeper into the cave. Patches of golden illumination appeared on the stone floor. The man sat up and looked toward the entrance. He saw a narrow beam of light marking the way. His heart beat faster. Mara rose and stretched. She looked outside and then back at him. "Tomorrow," she said, "we leave. Tonight, rest." She gathered her pack and moved to the cave mouth. The man watched her go. He felt a sense of purpose waking in him. Alone in the cave once more, he lay on the blanket and stared at the ceiling. He thought of the light he would see. He thought of Mara's kindness. He felt gratitude and determination. He vowed to follow her guidance. That night, the man woke to sound. He heard soft footsteps and a muted voice. He sat up and saw Mara entering with another lantern. She knelt and offered him water. "I thought you might be thirsty," she said. "We will need our strength for tomorrow." Duh. He drank deeply, the cool water soothing him. Set the bowl down and watched Mara. She was careful and patient, as if tending a wounded animal. He felt trust growing inside him. Mara spoke quietly. "I brought clothes for you," she said. She reached into her pack and pulled out a simple tunic and trousers made of rough cloth. The clothes were clean and dry. She laid them beside him. The man looked at the clothes. His own rags were filthy and torn. He hesitated, unsure how to change. Mara smiled and nodded. "I will help," she offered. He stood slowly, muscles stiff. Mara unrolled a small bundle of cloth and used it to wash his face and hands with water. His skin was pale and coated in dust. He felt new even in that simple act. When he was clean, she helped him put on the tunic and trousers. The fabric felt strange against his skin, but comforting. He looked at himself and barely recognized the man in the lantern light. Mara handed him a small mirror. He studied his reflection. His cheeks were sunken, his eyes dull. But beneath the surface, she saw strength waiting to be reborn. He set the mirror down and breathed deeply. "You are ready," Mara said. She stood and motioned toward the cave entrance. "Come, let us rest before dawn." The man followed her to the fire. She fed the flames, making them bright. She warmed a kettle of water and heated small stones. She used the hot stones to make a simple stew with dried vegetables and meat. The smell filled the cave with warmth. They ate side by side. Man felt his body respond to the nourishment. Felt energy he had not known in years. He smiled at Mara. She returned the smile, her eyes kind. He realized he was no longer alone. After the meal, Mara extinguished the torch inside the cave but left the fire alive. She stepped outside, leaving the firelight flickering. The man sat by the fire and watched the shadows dance. He felt calm and alert. He thought about the path ahead. He would follow the stream, climb to daylight, and face a world he barely remembered. The thought terrified him, but also filled him with hope. He closed his eyes and whispered a silent prayer. For strength, for memory, and for the woman who saved him. As sleep overtook him, he dreamed once more of open skies and green fields. He dreamed of walking in sunlight, dreamed of freedom. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he heard Mara's voice guiding him toward a new life. The first light of dawn crept into the cave as the man stretched his stiff limbs. He rose from the blanket and walked to the small pool of water Mara had left near the entrance. He cupped his hands and drank deeply, feeling the cool liquid flow. Through him, with each sip, he felt more alive than he had in years. Mara waited outside, leaning on a sturdy walking staff. She offered him a warm smile when he emerged. The morning air felt fresh and crisp against his skin. He breathed in deeply, tasting freedom for the first time in half a decade. They turned toward the narrow tunnel that led deeper into the cave system. The stream's gentle gurgle guided their steps. The man followed Mara's lead, his new clothes. Brushing against the stone walls, each footstep echoed faintly in the silent passage. The tunnel walls were damp, and occasional roots dangled from the ceiling. The man reached up and brushed them aside. Mara pointed out small ledges where handholds. Help them climb over fallen rocks. The man's heart pounded with effort and excitement, but he pressed on. After an hour of careful walking, they reached a low arch in the rock. Mara knelt and dipped into the stream with a small cup. She offered it to the man. He drank gratefully, then filled his water skin. The cold water revived him, washing away the last traces of fear. "We are close," Mara whispered. "I can hear the wind above." The man paused, listening. Through the narrow opening, he heard a faint rush. His pulse quickened. He imagined a hidden world just beyond the stone. They climbed a steep incline using roots as ropes. The man's muscles protested, but he kept going. Mara stayed close, offering her hand when he stumbled. Together, they climbed until the tunnel widened into a sloping corridor. A thin shaft of sunlight appeared at the end of the corridor. The man shielded his eyes and stepped forward. Brightness flooded his senses. He blinked until his vision adjusted. In front of him lay a hidden valley, bathed in morning light. The valley floor was carpeted with soft grass and wildflowers. A clear river wound through it, sparkling in the sun. Birds flitted between trees, singing cheerful songs. The man stood still, overwhelmed by the beauty of the world he had forgotten. Mara stood beside him, her eyes bright with joy. "Welcome back," she said softly. "This is the outside." The man knelt and ran his fingers through the grass. He felt the blades bend and spring back. He touched a flower petal and smelled its sweet fragrance. His mind flooded with memories, the feel of wind on his face, the laughter of children in a park, the heat of a campfire under starry skies. Tears rolled down his cheeks. Hand on his shoulder, steady and warm, they walked toward the riverbank. Mara pointed out a narrow path leading up a gentle slope. At the top, she said, lay a small village. She planned to take him there for food, rest, and news of the wider world. The man hesitated, glancing at the trees beyond. He felt a flicker of fear. After 5 years alone, the world felt vast and unknown. Mara noticed the hesitation. She squeezed his hand. "We'll be with you," she promised. Every step of the way, with renewed courage, he followed. They crossed the river on a fallen log. The man steadied himself, arms outstretched. Water lapped at his boots. Mara walked beside him, guiding his steps. Once on the other side, they shook off droplets and continued. Along the path, they encountered wild berries hanging low on bushes. Mara picked a few and offered them to the man. The berries were sweet and tart. He ate them slowly, savoring each burst of flavor. His hunger faded into contentment. As they climbed, they saw the rooftops of the village peeking through the trees. Smoke rose from chimneys. Voices carried on the breeze, children laughing, merchants calling greetings, animals stirring in pens. The man's heart leapt. He realized he had missed this lively hum of life. Mara led him down a gentle hill to the village entrance. A simple wooden gate marked the boundary. Guards in plain uniforms glanced at them but said nothing. Mara greeted them with a nod. They passed through and entered a cobblestone street lined with small houses and shops. The man walked slowly, taking in the colorful banners and open market stalls. A baker stood outside his shop, kneading dough. A blacksmith hammered glowing metal anvil blast. A group of children chased a ball down the street, giggling as it rolled past them. Mara guided him to a small inn at the center of town. She opened the door and led him inside. Warm light and the scent of cooking filled the room. A hearth burned brightly, and patrons sat at wooden tables enjoying breakfast. The innkeeper, friendly woman with kind eyes, greeted them. Mara introduced the man and explained his ordeal. The innkeeper offered a steaming bowl of porridge and a fresh loaf of bread. The man sat by the fire and ate, feeling nourishment seep into his bones. As he ate, Mara spoke with the innkeeper in low tones. The man listened to their conversation, catching words like rescue, memory, and ship. His curiosity grew. He wanted to know about the world beyond the cave and about the self he had lost. After breakfast, Mara and the man stepped outside. Sunlight warmed their faces. The man felt grounded in a way he had not since childhood, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. Mara turned to him. "Rest here today," she said. "Tonight, I will help you learn more about who you were. Tomorrow, we can travel farther." The man nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. He watched Mara walk down the street, blending into the bustle of the village. Alone for a moment, he closed his eyes and savored the sounds: a dog barking, a cart rolling over cobblestones, distant church bells. Each sound reminded him of life's small joys. He vowed to embrace them all once more. He found a bench by the hearth in the inn's common room and sat. His thoughts drifted to the journey ahead, discovering his past, facing new challenges, and learning to trust again. He felt ready for the first time in years to live and sow. In the heart of a quiet village under the bright sky, a hidden survivor began a new chapter of his life. Guided by the kindness of a woman named Mara and the promise of all the adventures yet to come, the man woke to the quiet murmur of the inn. Sunlight slipped through the small windows and touched his face. He stretched and sat up on the narrow bed. Soft mattress felt strange yet comforting beneath him. Swung his legs over the side and stood, his body feeling stronger than the day before. He found Mara in the common room, speaking with the innkeeper. When she saw him, her face lit up. She offered him a warm cup of tea and a plate of fresh fruit. The man accepted gratefully. He lifted the cup with both hands and breathed in the sweet scent of herbs. "Today," Mara said, "we will learn more about who you were." She spoke quietly, so as not to disturb the other guests. The man nodded. He felt both eager and nervous. He drank his tea and ate figs, feeling energy flowed through him. Mara led him outside. The village was quiet in the late morning. Smoke curled from chimneys, birds hopped on rooftops. They walked toward a simple stone building at the edge of the square. Above the door, carved faintly, was the word Records. Inside, the air was cool and still. Shelves lined the walls filled with scrolls and ledgers. A thin beam of light illuminated floating dust motes. Behind a wooden desk sat an elderly man with kind eyes. He wore simple robes and held a quill. "Welcome, Mara," the elder said softly. "And you too, traveler." He gestured to a chair. "Sit and tell me what you seek." Mara introduced the man and explained his loss of memory in years in. "The cave dot." The elder nodded slowly. "There is a record of a ship's captain lost in battle 5 years ago," he said. He reached for a thick ledger bound in worn leather. He opened it carefully and scanned the pages. His finger traced a line here. He said, "Captain Alden of the Starbreaker." The man's heart skipped. Starbreaker. The word felt familiar on his tongue. The elder read aloud. "Captain Jonas Alden, age 34. Age, commanded the human ship Starbreaker in defense of Allied colonies. Reported missing during the Battle of Ceres Ridge. Date April 12th, year 3054. Mara placed a hand on the man's arm. The man closed his eyes. Memories flickered. A tall bridge with blinking consoles, alarms blaring, crew running, he remembered. His own voice issuing orders. He remembered the Starbreaker's engines roaring as they raced into the void. His breath came fast. The elder continued, "Your disappearance was a mystery. No wreckage was found. You were declared lost. Your ship vanished without trace." He looked at the man. "But now you have returned." The man opened his eyes and met Mara's gaze. "This is me," he whispered. His voice filled with wonder. Mara nodded and smiled. "Yes," she said. "You are Captain Jonas Alden." The man sank into his chair, absorbing the weight of the revelation. He traced the name in his mind, feeling its truth. "What happened?" "To me?" he asked. His voice trembled. The elder shook his head. "That we do not know. Perhaps you fell into a chasm. Perhaps your escape pod malfunctioned. We only have fragments of reports. But you survived where others did not." He closed the ledger and set it aside. The man pressed his palms to his temples. Memories rose like waves. He saw himself in a blue uniform, voice calm yet firm, saw flashes of blinding light, and heard the whole shudder. Then darkness. He gasped and gripped the edge of the desk. Mara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Take your time," she said. "We will uncover more." The man nodded and exhaled slowly. He felt tears prick his eyes. He felt sorrow for the crew he lost and relief for the life he regained. The elder led them to another shelf. He pulled out a small box of metal data chips. "I have records of communications," he said. Mara helped the man insert a chip into a portable reader. Green text glowed on the screen. They scrolled through messages, crew logs, mission updates, farewell notes. One message caught the man's eye. A log entry from Lieutenant Giles. "Captain Alden remains resolute. We hold the line. I pray we make it home." The man's fingers trembled as he read. He recognized Giles's voice in his memory. He felt guilt and gratitude. "Giles was my friend," he said softly. He paused, collecting himself. "Others." He closed the box. Mara and the elder watched him with respect, stood and thanked the elder for his help. The elder nodded and smiled kindly. Outside, the sun was high in the sky. Mara guided the man to a bench under a flowering tree. Petals drifted down like soft rain. The man sat and closed his eyes, listened to the village around him, the hum of conversation, the clink of tools, the distant song of a bard practicing a lute. Mara sat beside him. "Get up, Jonas," she said, using his name. "You have a choice. You can find a ship and return to space. Or you can build a new life here." The man opened his eyes and looked at her. He saw hope in her expression. He thought of the cave, the darkness, the years of solitude. He thought of the village, the kindness of strangers, the warmth of the sun. He thought of the void above, of the starbreaker, of his lost crew.
His heart
Ached with memory. "I do not know what to choose," he said honestly. Mara squeezed his hand. "You do not have to decide now," she replied. "First, let us help you heal. Let us bring you home to yourself." The man nodded. He felt a sense of peace wash over him. They rose and walked back through the village. People greeted them with nods and smiles. Children waved. The man returned their smiles, feeling connected once more. He realized he had been lost not only from his past but from life itself.
"Ow!"
He returned, ready to live. When they reached the inn, Mara prepared tea, while the man gazed out the window. Beyond the rooftops, he saw rolling hills and distant mountains. The horizon promised endless possibility. He breathed in deeply and exhaled, feeling calm. That evening they dined on roasted vegetables and fresh bread. The man ate with gusto, savoring each bite. Mara listened as he spoke of his life before the battle, training with fellow cadets, exploring distant worlds, commanding his first ship. His voice grew stronger with each word. As night fell, the man stepped outside to walk under the stars. He looked up, recognizing constellations he had charted, felt both small and infinite beneath the canvas of light. Mara joined him, handing him a cloak against the cool breeze. They stood side by side, silent. Above them, the stars shone bright. The man's heart swelled with longing. He felt the pull of the galaxy calling him home. But he also felt the pull of this world, of the woman who saved him, and of new beginnings. Mara broke the silence. "Rest now, Jonas," she said softly. "Tomorrow we prepare for whatever you choose." The man nodded and smiled at her. He bowed his head and closed his eyes, sending silent thanks to the universe. And so, beneath the ancient sky, a lost captain found the fragments of his past and the promise of a future. Guided by a woman's kindness, he took his first steps toward healing and discovery, knowing that the next dawn would bring new challenges and new wonders. Mara found Jonas awake before dawn. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the pale light through the window. He had made his choice. He would return to space. Today he would find a ship and reclaim his place among the stars. They ate a simple breakfast of porridge and fruit in silence. The village was still asleep. Outside, the air was cool and fresh. Jonas felt his heart pound with both fear and excitement. He had not flown a ship in years. He wondered if he still remembered how. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "I will walk with you," she said, "to the port." Jonas nodded and finished his porridge. He lifted his gaze to her. Her calm eyes gave him strength. He knew he could not face the unknown alone. They left the inn and walked through the quiet streets. Lamps still glowed in windows. The scent of dew on grass filled the air. Jonas breathed deeply. He felt alive in a way he had not since his rescue. At the edge of the village, a dirt road led toward a small airfield. The path wound between low hills and past fields where farmers worked early. Jonas watched them, feeling a pang of longing for a normal life. Then he reminded himself of his duty. He was a captain. He belonged in the sky. They reached the airfield as the first rays of sun touched the horizon. The field was a flat expanse of packed earth and short grass. One hangar stood at the center, its doors open to reveal a single vessel inside. It was a small transport ship, old but well kept. Jonas' breath caught. He stepped forward, approaching the ship. Its hull was painted white and blue with the port's emblem near the cockpit. The craft looked familiar. It reminded him of shuttle transports he once commanded. Memories of flight lessons and long cargo runs filled his mind. Mara stayed at the edge of the field. She watched him with pride. She knew he would find his courage here. Jonas climbed the ladder to the cockpit. He ran his hand over the control panel. Switches and buttons gleamed in the morning light. He sat down in the pilot's seat and buckled himself in. For a moment, he closed his eyes and felt the vibration of the engines in his bones. He remembered the feel of thrust, the hum of power coursing through the hull. He took a deep breath and opened his eyes. He flipped the master switch. Lights on the panel glowed green. He powered on the auxiliary systems and checked the gauges. Everything read normal. He opened the comm channel. "Tower, this is Transport Alpha 3-1, requesting launch clearance." Jonas heard a crackle in his headset. "Alpha 3-1, you are cleared for launch. Winds are calm. Safe travels." The voice was calm and professional. Jonas nodded to himself, though no one could see him. He engaged the engines. Beneath him, the ship rumbled. He released the brakes and rolled onto the field. The grass brushed against the landing struts. Then he lifted the nose and accelerated. The craft rose smoothly into the sky. Jonas guided the transport upward, watching the village shrink below. He felt a rush of joy. The wind rushed past the windows. He leaned forward, hands steady on the controls. He remembered the training. Trusted himself. Once above 10,000 feet, he turned toward the station that orbited the planet. The station was small, but it bustled with traffic. Freighters and shuttles moved around it like bees around a hive. Jonas guided his transport onto the docking approach. As he approached the station, he saw other ships dock and depart. The station's lights glowed against the blackness of space. Jonas felt a surge of pride. He was home among the stars. He landed at Dock 17. Ground crew guided him into position and secured the hull. Jonas powered down the engines and unbuckled. He stepped into the airlock and walked toward the port offices. Inside the station, people of many worlds passed by. Merchants, travelers, and pilots hurried along corridors lined with windows showing distant planets. Jonas felt both small and part of something vast. He found the Port Authority desk. An officer greeted him. "Welcome, Captain Alden," she said. "We have been expecting you." Jonas paused. He had not thought word of his return would spread so quickly. He nodded and followed her to a private office. Inside, a small group waited. A veteran engineer who had maintained the transport, communications officer, and a logistics officer. Mara stood in the back, watching with a proud smile. The port commander stood and greeted Jonas. "Captain, we received your ship's log signature this morning," he said. "You're ready to support your command." He laid out documents, mission reports, crew manifests, and a chart of recent patrol routes. Jonas sat and reviewed the papers. Each line brought back memories. The routes he once flew, the cargo he carried, the positions he held in the fleet. He felt a mix of guilt and purpose. His crew had awaited his return, and now they might need him again. "I request a new crew," Jonas said, "in orders to proceed to the frontier sectors." The commander nodded. "We have assembled available personnel. We await your confirmation. However, a situation has arisen on the frontier." He paused. "There is unrest among the colonies. Scouts report possible pirate activity near the outer rim." Jonas's eyes brightened. This was the duty he had been born for. He stood and addressed the group. "Thank you for the preparations. Assemble the crew and prepare for departure within the hour." He looked to Mara. "Will you stay here or travel with us for a time?" Mara stepped forward. "My place is here," she said softly, "but I will join you until you need me not." Jonas placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." Mara nodded and stepped back. Jonas turned to the officers. "I will lead this mission. We depart at 0900 hours. Be ready." The officers saluted and left to make arrangements. Jonas took a moment to gather his thoughts. He looked out a nearby window at the endless stars. He felt both excitement and a solemn sense of responsibility. He stepped to a small console and keyed his com. "Prepare the crew for briefing. Captain Alden on deck." He paused. "And reserve a cabin for one guest." The console crackled. "Understood, sir." Jonas left the office and walked through the corridor. He found Mara waiting near the hatch. She smiled and reached out. He took her hand. Together they walked toward the briefing room. Inside, a dozen recruits stood in uniform. Some were veterans, some were fresh from training. Jonas stepped onto the dais and faced them. He felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. "Good morning," he began. His voice was steady. "I am Captain Jonas Alden. We embark today on a mission to secure the frontier and protect the colonies. You will follow my orders without question. Together, we will face any challenge." He paused and looked at each face in the room. He saw determination and trust. He felt hope. "Dismissed," he said. "Prepare for departure." Recruits saluted and left in disciplined rows. Jonas turned to Mara. "Will you stay for a moment?" he asked. Mara nodded. They walked back to the window. The stations. Lights glowed behind them. Jonas placed his arm around her. "I could not have done this without you," he said. "You brought me back." Mara leaned against him. "You would have done the same for me," she replied. "Now go." The stars await. Jonas kissed her hand and smiled. The launch horn sounded. Jonas straightened his uniform and moved toward the hangar doors. He felt alive, ready, and whole. The transport waited, engines humming softly. He climbed inside, saluted the crew, and took his seat. As the hangar doors opened, sunlight spilled in. Beyond lay the black expanse dotted with stars. Jonas gripped the controls and prepared for launch. Mara stood in the doorway, her lantern hanging at her side. She waved. Jonas lifted off and climbed into space. The station fell away below him. He smiled as he reached the stars. He had been lost in darkness for 5 years. Now he was home. And the galaxy awaited his command. Jonas guided the transport through the silent void toward the frontier sectors. Together with Mara, he reviewed the mission plan. Scouts had reported strange ship movements near the outer rim. Their task was to find the source and protect the colonies. The transport glided into a patrol lane. Jonas opened a comm channel. "This is Alpha 3-1 to all units. Remain alert for any unregistered traffic. Report suspicious contacts immediately." His voice was calm and clear. Mara watched. The screens beside him. She pointed to a blip on the scanner. There, she said. Small vessel moving fast. Jonas leaned forward. The blip flickered, then vanished. He frowned. Course? Mara asked. Jonas tapped controls. We follow. Maintain silent approach. The transport powered down secondary systems. Lights dimmed. Only essential panels glowed. They drifted closer. The blip reappeared. It was a small ship, angular and dark. It moved at high speed along a smuggler's corridor. Jonas keyed his come. Unclean vessel identified. Hail them on open channel. He opened the channel. This is Captain Alden of Human Transport Alpha 31. Identify yourself and state. Your business? Silence answered. Then a harsh voice crackled. You got no right here, Starship? Move on or die. Jonas's jaw set. He pressed a button. We only patrol. No one dies today. Turn away now. The pirate laughed. See, Captain? Prepare to be boarded. Jonas looked at Mara. They have boarding ships. Ready the defense turrets? Mara nodded and tapped her console. Turrets on the transport's flanks powered up. Jonas engaged them. The pirate ship fired first. Tiny. Energy bolts struck the hull. The transport rocked. Alarms sounded softly. Jonas held his course. Turned fire, he ordered. Voice steady, 2 turrets on each side glowed. They fired thin beams of light. The beams hit the pirate vessel's thrusters. Sparks flew from its hull. The pirate ship slowed and spun. Jonas guided the transport closer. Prepare docking clamps. We board them before more pirates arrive. Mara opened a hatch and activated the magnetic clamps. She stood ready with a tether line. The pirate ship's ramp lowered. A handful of pirates with small weapons rushed out. Jonas sealed the ramp before they could escape. The transport pressurized. Jonas and Mara suited up in light armor and stepped. Through the hatch dot inside the pirate ship, corridors were cramped and dark. Pirates shouted orders. Jonas raised a weapon. The men froze. He pressed the muzzle to the wall. Drop your weapons. You are under arrest for piracy. His voice echoed. Mara moved beside him. She held her weapon steady. Stay calm, she said. No one needs to get hurt. The pirates looked at each other and dropped their weapons on the deck. Jonas motioned to his link team, 2 seasoned officers and 3 recruits. They secured the bridge and the cargo bay. Jonas and Mara walked to the captain's cabin door. Jonas kicked it open. Inside, the pirate captain snarled. She wore dark clothes and a cruel grin. She raised a small pistol. Mara fired first. Blast shattered the pistol against the wall. The pirate fell to her knees. Jonas stepped forward. You will answer for your crimes, he said. The pirate hissed. You think you win? More of my kind will come. Jonas watched her eyes. He felt no fear. He cuffed her and motioned to his officers. They escorted her away. Jonas and Mara returned to the transport. The hull hatch sealed behind them. Jonas released the clamps and undocked. The pirate ship drifted, powerless. He opened the cum. Transport to station. Pirate vessel captured. Sending boarding party to collect prisoners. The station controller answered promptly. Well done, Captain Alden. Return to port for debriefing and repairs. Jonas nodded. He looked at Mara. We did it. She smiled. They set course back to the station. The transport's engines hummed steadily. Jonas felt pride in his crew and gratitude to Mara. He reached out and squeezed her hand. Thank you, he whispered. Mara leaned close. You led well, she said. You fight for peace. Jonas nodded and closed his eyes briefly. He remembered the cave and the long years of darkness. Now he was back among the stars, defending others. Hours later, they arrived at the station. Paired drones swarmed the transport's hull. Crew replaced. Damaged panels and refilled the water tanks. Jonas and Mara walked to the observation deck. Through tall windows, they saw cargo ships and fighters moving in formation. Jonas pressed a hand to the glass. He felt small, yet vital in this vast galaxy. Mara stood beside him. He turned and looked at her. What is next? He asked. Mara considered. You deserve rest, she said. But soon, a mission to the Outer Rim waits. Your name will be Known among the colonies, Jonas smiled, felt purpose and hope. A pager beeped at his belt. He read the message. Captain Alden, briefing in 10 minutes. He drew a deep breath and strode toward the command offices. Mara followed. Inside the briefing room, officers gathered around a holotable. A map of the frontier glowed blue. Sector lines and colony names floated above it. The sector lead spoke. We expect more pirate activity near the Ceres belt.
Out!
Scout teams have spotted ghost signals. Captain Alden, your transport will carry supplies and support small patrol crafts. Jonas studied the map. He pointed to a cluster of asteroids. We can set up a patrol route here, then send probes ahead to detect ghost signals. The officers nodded. They adjusted the route on the holomap. Mara watched Jonas. He spoke with confidence and clear purpose. She felt proud. The sector lead concluded. Prepare your crew. Departure at 0800 hours tomorrow. Jonas saluted. We will be ready. After the meeting, Jonas and Mara walked through the busy corridors. They passed bustling cafes and merchant stalls. Mara led him to a quiet alcove. She sat and beckoned him to sit. Jonas joined her. You have done well, she said. You fight not for glory, but for peace. Jonas looked at her. I fight for those who cannot protect themselves, he said. And for those who help me remember who I am. Mara reached for his hand. You are home, she said, among the stars and on this world. Jonas smiled and nodded that night. He slept in the crew quarters. In his dreams, he saw the cave and the woman's lantern. He saw the burning hull of the pirate ship and the glowing frontier stars. He felt both the darkness he left behind and the light he found again. When he woke, the station's artificial dawn glowed softly. Jonas rose, dressed and prepared for the next mission. He walked to Mara's quarters. She opened the door and, ready a cup of tea? They shared a quiet moment before duty called. Jonas sipped the tea and looked at Mara. Thank you, he said again. Mara smiled. There is more to do, she replied. Together, we will face it. And so, a lost captain and the woman who found him stood ready at the edge of the known world. Their story would continue among the stars, where each dawn brought new challenges and new hope.